Hi, this is Jason from Horrific Nightmares. Back to do um, my very good friend Eric's 100 subscriber contest. This was the toughest one I think I've ever done. You asked some really interesting questions, and the reason why it was so tough, the very first question, it's hard to find something that you haven't seen. I hope maybe I did, or maybe I can, let you in on something that you haven't seen before. Um, So we'll go with question number one. You wanted me to recommend either some ghost films or some possession films. The first one I wanted to recommend is The Possession of Michael King. I thought that was really interesting and a very different take on a possession film, in my opinion. The second one you've probably seen, it's called The Innkeepers. Sarah Paxton and for some reason his name escapes me. I kind of have a Halloween hangover, sugar hangover today. Yeah. For some reason, his name escapes me, but it is a Ty West film, and the interaction between the two lead characters, um, I really enjoyed. It's a really good ghost story, so yeah, it's pretty cool. And the third movie I wanted to recommend is actually one you may not have seen. It's a movie called Ghost. It's not necessarily a horror movie, but and I'm not talking about the one with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. I believe this has Casey Affleck in it, if I'm not mistaken. But I really enjoyed it. It kind of made you think. So, yeah. So those are the three I'm recommending. Um, Question number two. Um, Top three songs from your soundtrack of your life. I talked to you about that. I'm probably going to give you some more than just three. But, yeah. I do that as well. I relate songs from a period of my life. We're going to start with the 70s, of course. Would be Feeling Stronger Every Day, Just You and Me, and Saturday in the Park from Chicago. That reminds me a lot of my family. Songs from that era. They always seem to be on in the background. I come from a fairly decent sized family. My father is one of eight, um, and I have a lot of cousins. So, we used to have 4th of July parties and used to go see the parade in Dundalk, where, that's part of Maryland where most of my family lives. So they just kind of remind me of that period of time in my life. A couple more from that era are Diary, If, and Aubrey from Bread. David Gates, don't know if you're familiar with that. Um, they were always played around the house. My mom, of course, my mom and dad had the records, and they were always played around the house when I was younger, so that, has a lot of memory for me. And they're actually one of, I love Bread, one of my favorites. Make It With You is one of their more popular songs. Now we're going to move on to the 80s. Take On Me by Aha. That was playing around a lot of the time. One of my closest friends his parents had a shore house, and we used to go crabbing and fishing, and it seemed like that song was always playing on the boat. Of course, we were with his dad, and we would always take a Walkman or a little radio on the boat, and that seemed like that song was always playing. It was a good time in my life. Peace Cells from Megadeth kind of woke me up about certain things and became a bit of an anthem for me in the 80s. Um, Anything for You by Mr. Big was one of my songs that I was dating someone who ended up being my wife. So that has a lot of meaning. Um, I Don't Believe in Love by Queensryche off of Operation Mindcrime. Um, Kind of was an anthem with me in high school. Um, Plus, it is one of my favorite songs, but, it was still an anthem. Okay, now when we go into the 90s, When I See You Smile by Bad English is my wife and I's actual wedding song. We did get to meet John Waite, talk to him, and He's a really nice guy. Love to the Nines by Prince. Seemed like it was always on in the background. That whole album was always on in the background during a lot of the 90s. For when I was making music and hanging out with friends and stuff like that. Forever in Your Eyes by Mint Condition was supposed to be one of our wedding songs, but it was when I discovered Mint Condition in the 90s, and they ended up being one of my favorite bands. Kind of like a R&B band, but you know, they have heavy jazz influence as well. Another one is Power Fantastic by Prince. Was supposed to be in the wedding as well. Didn't kind of happen that way, but that was a song that meant a lot to me in the 90s and still does, but it seemed like it was always on. I thought it was fascinating. Found out how the song was made. Very interesting. Very interesting. So now we're going to move on to the 2000s. This is where I got sick with cancer. And, you know, things were a little different. One was Warrant, Stronger Now. Is a favorite of my wife and I's. Has a lot of meaning for that period of time. Another one was called Another Ticket by Eric Clapton. It was a song from the early 80s, late 70s, but kind of has a strong meaning for me. Trying to read my other one. Brighter Days by Loggins and Messina. Helped me through a lot of rough times. And it was always playing on the radio somewhere in my car, in the house. This other one I cannot read at all. Yeah, I can't read this other one. So yeah, so we're gonna go with that. And that brings us up to today, and you know, who knows from there. But yeah, that kind of takes care of most of my life. The last thing you wanted us to watch, and I know that this is probably not going to be a very popular opinion, but I have never seen Dead Parrot sketch from Monty Python. I watched it. I thought it was hysterical. You wanted us to do our best impression of Pining for the Fjords. I don't have an English accent, but a couple of my favorite lines from it are, "It's not pining, it's passed on." I thought that was hysterical. Of course, he threw the bird and it landed on the ground. "This parrot wouldn't move if I put 4,000 volts in it." I also thought that was funny. But just a great sketch. Just a great sketch. Like, I can't really do an impression of it. I don't have that kind of, yeah. But those are a couple of my favorite lines from it. But congratulations on 100 subscribers. You deserve so much more. You have a great channel. You're an incredibly nice person, very generous, and a really good friend. Really good friend. I've enjoyed our conversations. We'll have to catch up in a little bit. But yeah. But that's Eric from LastVenom76. Guys, definitely go and subscribe to him. He has an awesome channel. He is basically my go-to guy for martial arts films. He's the Grand Wizard, the all-knowing, and martial arts films are very close second to horror for me. So if I ever find anything and I'm not sure what it is, I always go to Eric and, you know, tell him what I got. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. That goes by 15 other names," or something like that. So, I mean, he knows all that kind of stuff. Kind of like I do with horror, but he's more that way with martial arts films. But he has an incredible horror collection as well. So, yeah. But definitely go subscribe to him. He's an awesome guy. And until next time, guys, peace.